Welcome to Ashanda At Large, where we discuss faith, family, and the future of our community. So, family, I want to weigh in on this situation about Whoopi Goldberg. I wasn't really going to do so because a lot of people have given their opinions, but I came across something that I thought was so important, a dynamic behind this entire controversy, if you will, that I want to bring to light. So before we get started, I want to ask you all to be sure to like as well as to subscribe if you have not already done so. And don't forget to hit that notification bell on your right so that you can get my latest updates as I post them. Also, you can go ahead and subscribe to my backup channel, Ashanda at Home. So if anything were to happen to this channel, you'll be able to access my content over there. So again, that is Ashanda at Home. So let me go ahead and get into this story really quickly. So you all know the controversy with Whoopi Goldberg, the comments that she made about the Holocaust not being a racist crime, if you will, but rather being a white on white crime. Humanity acting inhumane towards one another. So this comment landed her in a 2-week suspension. And as a matter of fact, I learned tonight that the person who suspended her was actually an Israelite or a Black woman. That doesn't necessarily surprise me because, you know, that's been essentially the makeup when it comes to our community. We are so lost as a people. We don't know who we are. And because we don't know who we are, we oftentimes cape for the very people that oppress us. Now, I know when it comes to these issues that, you know, we're dealing with heavy censorship. People who tend to discuss these things tend to get canceled because there seems to be one group of people that you cannot talk about unless you're taking that risk and putting yourself in that situation where, hey, you know, they can send their hound dogs against you. And no, I'm not talking about white people in the context of Caucasians. I'm not talking about them because the reality is that you can talk about white people all day long and nobody's going to do anything to you. This is one of the arguments that Caucasians have today, is that you can talk about them, you could talk about their racism, you could talk about all the things that they've done. They're not necessarily held to accountability. We do know that. However, anybody's free to say anything about them. Free to say anything about us, and there's no accountability, nothing. But if you talk about a certain demographic of people who are actually racially connected to white people, they all stem from the same bloodline of the Caucasian race. They just happen to take on different degrees and measures of religious observation, if you will. Then you're going to find yourself being shut down. And that's what's happened here with Whoopi when she stated the facts. She stated the reality that the Holocaust was not about race. Now, I want to give a shout out to Pastor Kelly. Y'all go and check out Pastor Kelly's message because he shared something about the Supreme Court making a decision that you cannot call a hate crime by a Jewish person and a white person. You cannot call that racist. Okay. You can't even call it a hate crime. You can call it a crime, but you can't call it a hate crime because they're both white. Okay. So at the end of the day, for anybody saying, but no, you don't understand, Ashanda, like, no, they have a whole different lineage and they're a whole different people. No, honey, they're not. They're literally the same people. That's like saying when they talk about how Hitler wanted a pure breed of white people by having blonde hair and blue eyes versus having dark hair and darker eyes, when he wanted that meant somehow was racist. No, that's the same as colorism. That's the same as a chocolate melanated man or woman having conflict with a bright skinned red bone man or woman. It's colorism. Okay. They're still the same group of people, but they just have different complexions or they have different appearances in some ways, like their hair or their eye color. So the reality is that her statement was factual. What angered people was the reality that she was bringing out an inconvenient truth, especially the people who she was referring to. It's inconvenient truth. Now let's be clear about the timeline that we're dealing with here. We are technically in the middle of what is known as Black History Month. Now, I want to say for the record, I am not a fan of Whoopi Goldberg at all. I am not a fan of The View. I'm not a fan of anything that they represent, because I realize at the end of the day that they're all working for the same enemy. They're working for Ha-Satan. So I'm not a fan of Whoopi Goldberg. But what I will say is that the words that she said out of her mouth, that in itself was not controversial. Now, these people are acting like, oh my goodness, she just denied the Holocaust. No, she didn't. Oh my goodness, she said that Hitler was right for what he did. No, she didn't. She didn't say any of that. She said that it was man acting inhumanely towards man. She said the truth, right? Isn't all of sin man acting inhumanely toward man? Everything that we do sinfully affects another person. So at the end of the day, because she put it through the broad brush of what it is, rather than trying to conflate the issue and make it appear as though there was some racial edge, when we know, in fact, that Hitler did not just persecute people of Jewish descent, if you will, with dark hair and dark eyes. He did not do that. He persecuted Negroes. He persecuted homosexuals. He persecuted those who were handicapped. In the same way that Margaret Sanger targeted specific people groups to exterminate via abortion, okay? He actually he looked at America. He looked at the eugenicist of America, and he took inspiration from them, okay? He took all of its inspiration for what he did during that time and that period from what he saw in the eugenicist community in America, Margaret Sanger and her crew. So let's get some facts here. Let's get some history here, okay? So in any case, what I want to show y'all real quick, I want to show you why it is that I chose to discuss this issue. I want you to take a look at this. So this is Ben Shapiro, and he's talking about the fact that Whoopi is upset because of her being suspended, and she's threatening to even quit. And so, of course, he's talking about how she's so evil and she's this and she's that, blah, blah, blah. He's saying all of these things. But what interested me more was the comment section. And so this comment in particular was something that I felt like, okay, here it is 100% right here. So someone says here, she has no concern for Black on Black violence either. Now, if you look at the thread, these were the messages in the thread. Kimberly says, boom, damn Skip, she doesn't give two S's about that. Cutesy Face McGee says, does anybody? With 4 thumbs up. And then Edward says, yes, it is a pity. Surfer Dude says, sad but true, unfortunately. Then Tyrant says, nobody does, evidently. Let's sit on that with 4 likes. Nobody does, evidently. Steampunk Belladonna says, they don't. Why should I? Sarah goes on to say, Thomas Sowell is good. I was listening to Dmitry Orlov talk about Democrats using Blacks as tools, and it's so true. Putin noted that the Western media's anti-Russia is a bit like anti-Semitism. I think it was in that Megyn Kelly video. I like Putin. And finally, Cutesy Face, who had replied up there, does anybody, from this portion up here in the comment section, goes on to say, to reply to Steampunk, better them than me. I want that to sit on, I want that to sit and rest on your conscience for a minute there. Better them than me. Really, when you look at the multitude of comments that are made under Ben Shapiro's video, you're really going to find essentially what Cutesy Face McGee says. Her sentiments, they all share. Better them than me. See, we want to pretend like we are perpetual victims, but the reality is that the real people who are really suffering and the ones that are causing their own suffering via Black on Black crime, better them exterminate themselves. Better them. You exterminate yourself, but we don't want to exterminate ourselves, okay? You go right on ahead. You see, we live in a culture and a world that is filled with hypocrisy, filled with it. As I bridge the gap with Gentile brothers and sisters who are honest enough to tell the truth about their own people, it's a very interesting dynamic to see that they themselves recognize that by and large, their community, their race, if you will, their people group, their nations are totally and utterly unrepentant for what has been done to us. We're not going to talk about King Leopold, right? And his atrocity, the real Holocaust committed against the Congolese children, cutting off their arms, killing a multitude. I think it was like 100 million Congolese that were killed, all for him to be able to gain his wealth, to do all that they do in colonizing the land over there in the continent. Talking about a 3-year stint of what is the Holocaust and maximizing that and the life that was lost. And for every life that was lost because of this wickedness that took place, every one of those lives are lost. Those lives were worthy. Those lives were worthy, no matter what skin that they were in. They should not have been killed. They should not have been treated that way. But in light of 250 years of chattel slavery and another 150 years plus of racial discrimination and killings, strange fruit, lynchings, and yet we are continuously told that better them than me. We're continuously told that our cry, our pain, our wanting to just be treated equal is somehow wrong, that we just need to get over it, that we are the perpetual victims. I mean, we're in Black History Month, and yet it amazes me. What amazes me is the reality that so many of these people are so blind and so deceived. So many of these people are so blind and so deceived into thinking that what has happened to us is of no consequence. What continues to happen to us, be it by their hands or our hands, is of no consequence to them. Better us than them. And yet at the same time, these are the same people that are hollering and hooting about all of the lockdowns and all of the draconian measures that are taking place through the pandemic. We can see eye to eye when it comes to all of the things that are being done on the nations because of the few. But yet when it comes to seeing what has been done to us and our people, it's like better them than me. So my thoughts about this whole Whoopi situation, this whole situation surrounding ethnic claims or racial discrimination, is that it's hogwash. My thoughts are that anytime anybody speaks a measure of truth, Nick Cannon is a perfect example by saying that the real Hebrews, the real Israelites are Black people, and all of a sudden he gets canceled over that. He has to go through this training, this psychological reprogramming to correct his thinking. And when you can pull that much influence, when you have that much power behind the scenes, not in front of the scenes, but behind the scenes, to where you can damage someone's livelihood because you don't like what they have to say, then how do you become the victim in that? That's not the move of a victim. A victim doesn't have power. A victim is powerless. That is the definition of an oppressor. That is the definition of an oppressor. Fact upon fact, whether you like it or not, it's an inconvenient truth. You're not a victim, you're an oppressor. You can't step on someone else's foot, and when they say, ow, you've hurt me, you say, I'm feeling victimized because you told me that my foot hurt on top of yours. You're an oppressor. You're the real oppressor. You're the hidden hand oppressor. And at the end of the day, the Most High is exposing. He's exposing all things. He's exposing everything. The books have been opened. The Table of Nations is in Genesis chapter 10. And anybody with eyes to see and ears to hear that do not want to believe the lie that has been fed to all nations, they can read the word for themselves. They can see the truth for themselves. You shall know the truth, and the truth it shall set you free if you let it. So anyway, those are my thoughts about this whole situation. I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Now, I already know how my people think, but hey, let's say that you are Caucasian. Let's say that you are of another ethnic group and you understand. You understand my perspective, or maybe you disagree with my perspective. I want to hear yours below in the comment section. So definitely go ahead and do that. But y'all just be mindful, because you know YT, they are the king of censorship. So that's the reality. But in any case, again, like, share, and subscribe if you've not already done so. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the next go round. As always, love yourselves without hating your enemies. And until next time, y'all bless and salama.